Wayne's lady.
Bruce Wayne's lady.
She's a sharp, sexy lady.
Bruce Wayne's lady.
Beautiful lady.
Bruce Wayne's lady.
Hard to love lady.
Bruce Wayne's lady.
Sell his heart and soul, give everything he owned. Would be easy to reform if she could go straight for one night. Welcome to Bat Books for Beginners. Chris and Gerry go to Gotham after dark to visit with the one and only Selina Kyle in Catwoman 1 year later. Welcome to Bat Books for Beginners.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of TBU's Bat Books for Beginners, episode 173. My name is Gerry.
And I'm Chris.
And we are your hosts.
On Bat Books for Beginners, we will examine story arcs with Batman and related characters. We'll give you the historical background of the book, break down the plot and the art, and give you our opinions so you can decide for yourself if they're worth a read.
Today's Bat Book that Chris and I are covering is Catwoman, 1 year later, The Replacements. Chris, tell us a little bit about this book.
Hey, thank you very much, Gerry. Hello, Batmans. Thank you very much for downloading. Catwoman, The Replacements is a 144-page trade paperback that was cover dated February 2007 and had a cover price of $14.99. This book reprints 6 issues of Catwoman Volume 3, starting with issue number 53, cover dated May 2006, through number 58, cover dated September 2006, which is the Catwoman 1 year later story arc. As with the books we covered last month, the first 2 issues were originally cover priced at $2.50, and the latter issues were cover priced at $2.99. The individual issues appear to be available on Comixology. If you're interested in going the hard copy route, the individual issues appear to be hovering around cover price for about $4 to a copy in fine condition. However, it is interesting to note that issue number 53 had a second printing variation with a red-colored background versus the first printing that had a blue background. And this second printing appears to go for 4 times to 20 times the cover price.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's an interesting variation there, used for the second print.
Yeah.
Now, if you'd rather try to obtain the hard copy of the trade paperback, most online vendors I found have this for half the cover price for both new and used copies. Now, for our creative team, as usual, I'll go with my memory and some online resources. Our writer is Will Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer is 50 years old and a native of Niles, Ohio. He currently resides in Rockford, Illinois, and he's a huge film and movie fan. His first comics work for DC was a Vertigo title entitled The Finals, and The Finals was illustrated by Jill Thompson, and I have to confess I'm not familiar with this work. I first encountered Will Pfeiffer when he wrote a book called Hero, which was an updated and heavier take on the Dial H for Hero comics that some older fans of DC might be familiar with. It only ran for 22 issues, but I thought this was really an excellent series. He then worked on Swamp Thing and Aquaman with the notable Sub Diego storyline. He's also worked on Demon and Amazon's Attack miniseries, Blue Beetle, Red Hood, and the Outlaws, and he also worked on the Teen Titans. David Lopez was the penciler, and Alvaro Lopez was the inker. David Lopez may be best known for co-creating the first volume of the Fallen Angel comic book series, which had a pretty decent fan following. Most recently, he worked on the all-new Wolverine title for Marvel Comics. Now, I wasn't able to find too much on Alvaro Lopez, apparently no relation, other than he's recently done some inking chores on several Marvel books, including Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, and the current Royals title featuring the Inhumans. I have to mention that Adam Hughes was the cover artist. Hughes is 50 years old, and he's a native of New Jersey, and he presently resides in Atlanta. Politely put, Adam Hughes draws beautiful women or draws women beautifully, depending on how you look at it. We won't cover any controversy or polarizing subject matter on our show, though. One of Hughes' more notable works was a 2008 Real Power of the DC Universe poster depicting the women of the DC Universe wearing gowns and formal attire. I think it's fair to say that Hughes primarily does cover work. However, recently, in 2016, he's done the writing and artwork for the Archie title Betty and Veronica. I read it. I enjoyed it. I think there's only been 3 issues of that so far, and I don't know if there's any issues forthcoming. Before I hand it back over to you, Gerry, I just want to give our listeners a heads up that this story features several characters that we will talk about in the review portion, including, but not limited to, Holly Robinson, and the villains Film Freak and Angleman. Now, currently this trade has an average score of 4 stars out of 5 on Amazon.com, but that's only based on 3 reviews. However, I did some more research, and based on the Goodreads website at Goodreads.com, this has a 3.5 star rating out of 5 based on 152 reviews and 12 written reviews. And with that, I shall turn it back over to you, Gerry.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Interesting how Pfeiffer is a movie fan, because he's got a character in here that is too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks. So Chris and I are going to talk about this story after a few messages from some of our friends.
Warlord Worlds, a fan podcast devoted to the comic creations of Mike Grell, including Warlord, John Sable, Starslayer, Shaman's Tears, and Green Arrow. I'm Darren.
And I'm Ruth. We hope you'll join us as we discuss the stories, characters, and art in the many excellent comics from writer and artist Mike Grell.
Warlord Worlds is available at podbean.com and on iTunes and Stitcher.
Find us at warlordworlds.com.
Welcome back. Here's the story of Catwoman, 1 year later, The Replacements. A year after the events of Infinite Crisis, Selina Kyle is living under the name of Irina Dubrovna with her newborn baby girl, Helena. Holly Robinson, Selina's friend, has taken over as Catwoman. She might not be as smooth as Selina, but she is dangerous in her own right. She beats up a team of guys that have stolen 73 high-end video cameras. The guys are the underlings of an aspiring film director, artiste, poser named Edison. A mysterious photographer is following Catwoman around and taking photos of her. At GCPD headquarters, Officer Lenehan believes that Catwoman killed Black Mask. Nobody seems to care. It seems that most folks are glad Black Mask is dead and don't want to open up a big can of worms over it. The cops are interrogating one of the camera gang members, and he admits to Lenehan that they were defeated by Catwoman. At the Irina Dubrovna residence, Selina is watching over her sleeping baby. Batman appears out of the shadows. He is given a full scholarship to any college Helena wants when the time comes. Also, he brings a teddy bear. Batman isn't sure that Holly Robinson is up to the task of being Catwoman. Holly returns to the scene of the earlier fight. She picks up a booby-trapped academic triangle, which explodes and disables her. The photographer from earlier puts his boot on her neck and says that she screwed up his life and he is going to return the favor. He pulls off Holly's mask and duct tapes her mouth and zip ties her at the edge of a building. Holly uses her cat claws to cut the zip ties and scrapes at his face. He hits her with a triangle, but she pummels him. The whole event was caught by a bystander on his cell phone. Selina is up late watching a midnight movie hosted by a local film freak, is what he calls himself. This guy is fixated on serial killers. He also has the video taken of Holly without her Catwoman mask and airs it. Luckily, you can't see Holly's face. The film freak calls the photographer named Angelo Bend and asks if he would like to fight Catwoman again, so they could get more photos. Holly is out Catwomaning and has a new partner, Wildcat. He's a punch first, ask questions later kind of superhero. Lenehan goes to see Edison, the film freak, and wants a copy of the Catwoman video. After some intimidation, he gets what he came for. Selina yearns for the day when she was Catwoman, bounding from rooftop to rooftop. She gets a nanny for Helena and puts on her Catwoman suit, which now doesn't quite fit because of her added baby weight. She's able to finally get it on and sets out into the Gotham night. She's attacked by one of Edison's gang that Holly fought earlier. He's about to shoot Selina, Catwoman, when Holly, Catwoman, drops what looks to be, a couch on him. The two Catwomen chat, but they are being caught on film by one of Edison's guys. Lenihan sees the film and realizes that there are two Catwomen. Edison has figured out Selina's alias, Irina Dubrovna, which is a character from the movie Cat People. That's what you get when you're fighting a movie fan, and you give a movie a trivia question as your secret alias.
Indeed, and it's no surprise that somebody out there figured that out.
Yeah. Knowing her name, he's able to figure out her home address. Selina is taking a catnap in one of her Gotham hideouts when she gets a call from Helena's nanny. Something is wrong. Selina rushes home to find the nanny unconscious and Helena in the clutches of Edison and Angelo. Angelo is holding the baby, and Edison is filming Selina. She turns off the lights in the room and turns on her night vision goggles. She's able to snatch Helena away from Angelo. He throws a triangle and hits her right by the Achilles tendon, which puts her on the ground. Edison comes in to get a close-up with his video camera, and Selina drives the camera into his eye. Ouch. She takes care of the two villains. Holly is arrested by Lenihan. He knows that she isn't the real Catwoman. She's taken into interrogation and gets to make her one phone call. She calls Wildcat to bust her out of police headquarters. He presumably does. Angelo tells Selina that since they know who she is, they are going to tell the cops. Selina's in a bit of a pickle since she adheres to the strict no-kill Bat family policy. So she calls in a favor. She asks Zatanna to come by to do an identity crisis mind wipe on the two baddies. She does, and Angelo goes to the GCPD to confess his crimes. Edison goes to the WUAB TV studios to confess his crimes against cinema. And to kill John Rinaldi, the station manager.
Oh, no.
The end. What a mess. Chris and I are going to talk about our feelings for this story after these words from some of our friends.
Beautiful as Aphrodite. Wise as Athena. Stronger than Hercules. Swifter than Mercury. Explore the 75-year history of the Amazon princess with Wonder Woman, Warrior for Peace, a monthly podcast available on iTunes, Stitcher, and at wonderwomanwarriorforpeace.wordpress.com.
Welcome back. So, Chris, tell me your ideas about this story.
Well, the Adam Hughes covers are really, really gorgeous.
They're really
and
good.
Aside from one with a Zatanna on it, I don't think these were over-sexualized images of any woman on these covers of Catwoman. Okay. Seriously, I'll try to be fair. I know the majority of reviews for this book are favorable, but I just don't think this story clicked for me. Now, I'm going to try to find some positives. The artwork from the Lopez's are very, very good. It's very, very decent. This is above average stuff. However, one of the things that bothered me, I thought the coloring was off, and especially with respect to Selina's hair. Some of the panels in some of the scenes, she's got her usual dark hair, and then later on, in some other panels, it's like this lighter brown chestnut color, and, that kind of threw me off here and there, and I never saw her with that shade of brown before since the 77 Filmation cartoon. I mean, this was really, really light brown. It kind of confused me and was off-putting after a while. Structurally, the story uses a lot of flashback, and for some scenes, it does use this motif very effectively, with Will Pfeiffer picking and choosing what he wants to reveal and making the reader curious. Yes, I consider myself a huge Catwoman Selina Kyle fan, but the supporting cast that we have here, Holly Robertson, Slam Bradley, Slam Jr., this just never seemed to fit in the Selina-verse that I like, prefer, or that I'm accustomed to. I'm going to give a pass to Ted Grant / Wildcat. He's got a long history that reaches back to the Golden Age, and he's been around practically as long as Catwoman herself. Honestly, until it was brought up in our last podcast, I forgot that Holly was Catwoman, and I think in my mind I tried to suppress it. Gerry, I'm guessing, I think you liked this more than I did, but what were your initial thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think that this story is well told. I mean, we've had a couple of other stories that really fall apart at the end. The logic doesn't make sense. It's just a bunch of scenes and, filler. I don't think this book has any. I think this is a pretty, with a couple of exceptions, I think it's a pretty tightly told story. The exceptions, I would say, there's a Green Lantern is brought in here. I didn't bring that up in my synopsis, but there are a couple little side paths that this story takes, but they're very few and don't impact the flow of the story very much. So I agree. I'm a big Selina Kyle fan as well. I wasn't as bothered as you were by the depiction of her here. And with the exception, I think that your point about her hair color is really interesting, because one of the real challenges of telling this story is having two different characters in almost the identical outfits at the same time. And, which Catwoman is this now? Is it a flashback to Selina Kyle's old days? Is it Holly in the present? Or is it Selina in the present? There's a lot of, paying attention that you have to make. And I think, to be honest, that this story does a fair job of that. That one of the things that they use, the writer uses, is Holly has a roommate, and they mention her name. Holly periodically mentions her name, and so if she's in the Catwoman outfit, you go, okay, she's, I think it's Karen, I think is her name. And she mentions her, so you say, oh, okay, this is Holly. So I think it does a better job than expected dealing with that issue. So I just felt like it was a quick read that had no dead ends, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you mentioned the appearance of Green Lantern, because usually this is an aspect of a story that I like. And to be clear, this is the Alan Scott Golden Age version of Green Lantern. We also had Ted Grant Wildcat, and then we also had Slam Bradley. Now, these were characters that were originally appeared in the Golden Age, and I like it when a story brings back these characters and gives them a nod and a homage. Do I ask myself if these characters were shoehorned in here just for the sake of relevance? No, I think they did. They were used more or less effectively. Green Lantern appears to basically tell Ted, hey, former JSA member, come along, we got a mission to do. Got my call, got to go. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of cool. Wildcat, I really wonder how old he is now, and I don't know if he's got this, if these Golden Age characters, had some kind of a de-aging process. Who knows? But it was nice to see them. But other than that, Angleman, I always associate this guy with a Wonder Woman rogue, being a Wonder Woman Rose Gallery. One of my notes here that I had, he first appeared way back in Wonder Woman number 70, cover dated November 1954. Wow. And he was just known for being a smart guy who covered all the angles, and he was going by the name Angle Andrews. Now, he's gone over a few different looks and appearance. The first, he wore this, in the Bronze Age, he had, this tight fitting costume and goggles, and now he was going by the name Angelo Bend, and he's got this green bodysuit, and he's got this weapon called the Angler, which is this triangle-shaped device that could warp space and face objects into people in other dimensions. One thing of note, too, but we really didn't get into why he appears here and what the background is. And again, I think this is one of the things that kind of does these DC trades a disservice, is just having some type of page synopsis of what went on before that you see over in Marvel Comics with their story arcs and things. Because I guess there was a violent encounter that happened in Catwoman number 49, or 49, with Angleman and Catwoman, and they just had a real violent encounter that we just don't get much allusion to here. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of a little bit of a disservice how that fleshed out.
Yeah. I do have to say, throwing those triangles, that's a terrible weapon. Just saying.
One thing I will say this though, for Pfeiffer, I do like, I heard him on a recent podcast called Double Page Spread, which I was tuned on to by the Sutherlands. Oh, yeah. And he's a real, seems like a very affable guy. Seems like a very likable guy. And they were just, in this podcast, he was just talking about his love for films, and he really knows his stuff, which seems like the Film Freak is a perfect villain for this. Yeah. However, this is the second incarnation of this villain, this guy named Edison, and this is his first appearance here in the story arc. I remember, though, back in the 80s, there was another one that was created by Doug Mencha and Tom Mandrake, and he first appeared in Batman 395, and he seemed to be really more of a costume arch villain as opposed to this Edison guy here. And I'm not sure which version I like. I will say this Edison guy appears to be more realistic, more perhaps relatable. Did you like Angleman or Film Freak over another, Jerry? Or did you like them both equally?
I think I liked Angleman a little better in this case. I think you're absolutely right about Edison being relatable. He's, I know people like that who talk in film references, and I do it myself sometimes, I did find his rap to get a little tedious. It was everything has to do with a movie. And that, it just kind of wore a little thin for me after a while. But I thought, Angelo was a good bad guy in this case. Just not those triangles. That's just so dumb.
Yeah, the huge issue with this, I think we're going to have to bring this up eventually, is Catwoman and her being a mother. Yeah. This was really interesting to read in how she set this up. We had a lot of panels with personal insight, a lot of her nurturing, a lot of her worry for being in Gotham and what kind of world she's going to face when she matures. This was very telling, and it was one of the more stronger points of the story. But I'm trying to find if in my mind, did this work, and did this seem to be the same voice with the Selene and Catwoman that I'm accustomed to? Honestly, I don't know. This is kind of uncharted waters because we really don't get the exploration into this. A part of me wondered, did she put on the costume too soon? Should she have waited till she was ready and was – because Holly evidently wasn't ready in the top of her game. Yeah. So – I thought some of the insights with respect to the depiction of we had here with Selena accepting the situation was pretty interesting, and I will have to give some, not just for the points to that. Yeah. So I think that raises a couple of interesting questions, kind of higher level than just to the story, is that, who's the father of Selena's baby? In this case, this is kind of comes out of nowhere. We don't really, learn anything about the situation that, gives Selena the baby. Now, it also raises the question with her name being Helena, what universe is this? Back in the Golden Age, Helena Wayne was the daughter of Bruce and Selena, right? Selena has a baby with Bruce. That ultimately becomes Huntress. But I don't think that's what's meant here. I don't think, are the Birds of Prey part of this universe here? Right. Jerry, you brought up two excellent points, and this is where I had two of my hugest issues with the story. One was just with how flippant Selena comes up with the name Helena because it rhymes with Arena, her name, Dubrow. And what really? That's it. There's no mention of it being a grandmother name, a name of the family, or just something you like because it rhymed with another name. I thought that really did a disservice to the character. And agreed. Who is the father of Selena's baby? We don't know here. Nope. It's not revealed till later on that it's Slam Bradley Jr. And that's not even told in this story. And we just get a lot of teasing, and you would think there would be some kind of hint or drop of a mention, but no, you're kind of agonizing and torturing the reader at this point, plowing through these 6 issues, trying to find out who is this guy, why isn't he here, why isn't he present, and it's just not addressed. I really had a problem with that. Just for what it's worth, it is Slam Bradley Jr., as weird as this sounds. This doesn't come revealed until later on in Catwoman number 62, and again, we're here in Volume 3. It's also revealed that his death is happened, and that's revealed as in the flashback. Just to keep on going with this, Helena is later given up for adoption. Selena asks Zatanna to erase memories of her. What? Really? Come on. So, and then we basically, kind of forget this ever happened. I mean, that's really sad. That's really sad that we don't have any of these elements of that story in this book here.
I think so. I could definitely understand somebody really looking deeply into the continuity of this book is it's kind of a mess. So I definitely understand that being problematic for some readers.
Sure.
So, and also, let's also talk about the end. Edison gets away. Zatanna's mind wipe and suggestion, instead of confessing his crimes to the police, he confesses his crimes to, I guess, a movie reviewer of some kind, and then kills him.
Yeah. And how violent was that?
Oh,
Yeah,
my goodness.
It was a pretty violent scene there, and apparently not all of Zatanna's things work effectively there. And I was kind of left hanging with resolution, and it just seemed to have an abrupt ending there and no closure. And I guess I don't know if that's telling the readers, well, you'll have to buy the next issue or trade paperback to see how this gets resolved. And I kind of felt a little cheated with that.
Yeah, and also Holly. We just have to assume that Wildcat's going to get her out of the pokey.
Right. And, that's one thing we haven't examined either, Jerry. So let's talk about Holly for a second or two. Holly Robinson, here she is. She willingly puts on the tights and she goes out as Catwoman. I didn't find her a dislikable character in this particular read, but at the same time, I just didn't see her as Catwoman. What were your thoughts of Holly Robinson in this book?
Yeah, it seemed to me that she was kind of obviously in over her head. And I'm surprised that Selina didn't see that. Batman saw it. He mentioned that to her. But I'm surprised that she didn't see it, and it might be just because she wanted her to be ready so badly. She kind of pretended to herself that she was.
Yeah. Now, just of a note for the listeners, too, let's go into Holly Robinson's history a little bit. She first appeared in Batman number 404. That was in the Batman Year One story arc by Frank Miller and Dave Mazzucchelli. She was a friend and acquaintance of Selina Kyle, but back then, I think when that story ended, God, I'm trying to remember, I think she wound up going to a convent before that was all said and done. Later on, Catwoman appeared in the title Action Comics Weekly in the late 80s, and I think around 1988, the character was killed off, and Selina had to go and investigate the death. Now, Ed Brubaker brings back the character Holly Robinson, and he later admits in an interview that he wasn't aware the character had been killed off. Now, it was explained that the Action Comics story didn't exist due to the events in the 0 Hour, and that's how they kind of cleaned it up. I think she appears in the DC Comics Rebirth universe. We see that she's kind of supposedly done these murders and stuff like that, and it was said to be Catwoman, but in reality it was Holly. I think also she's going by the name Catherine Ann Turley in this. So Holly Robinson, it seems like every decade there's a different incarnation of this character, and we just don't know what we're getting, from decade to decade, because there doesn't seem to be any consistency, which certainly doesn't do the character any favors and does the readers a bit of disservice, because we keep on doing all these retcons and things.
She's active currently in the current books too.
Yep.
Yeah. And again, completely different character.
Yes.
So what did you think regarding the art in these books?
I really didn't have a problem with it. I thought the covers were gorgeous. Like I said, I thought the Zatanna one was maybe a little too cheesecakey for some readers' taste. Mm-hmm. But by and large, I certainly don't think this was a over-glamorized or over-sexualized version of Catwoman on any of the covers. Mm-hmm. I thought the work that was done with respect to the artwork was pretty decent. I really had no qualms with it. There was nothing that really particularly stood out in a particular favorite panel or favorite spread, splash page or anything. But, I thought it was all right. How about you?
I thought I really like the colors in this book, and I agree with you. The first time we see Zatanna, the panel is like a vivid, rich color, as opposed to some of the more muted colors we had been used to leading up to it. So I thought that was really beautiful. And these covers some of them are really, really cool. There's one with Selina kind of in a robe and slippers with a cooking spoon, and Helena in a stroller. That looks pretty funny.
Yeah, that kind of was reminiscent to for a lone wolf and cub kind of thing, like with that particular one there. I thought that was really cool. Yeah.
And then there's another one, but this one is odd. It has her in her Catwoman suit, stirring a cup of coffee with kind of a Band-Aid over her nose. And it looks, I mean, she's got a little smirk on her face that looks really cool. But then if you look at her hand looks like almost hyper-realistic. Like a Bashki, you know, he traced a real hand over it. It's unusual, but striking.
Yeah. I think my favorite cover of the lot was 55, where Selina's in this all-night diner, and she's looking out the window, and she sees Holly in a Catwoman costume just going over the rooftops, and there's just this look of fear and dread on her face that, you know, I should be doing this and stuff. So, yeah.
That's a good cover. Colorful and...
Very much so, yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, well, that's fantastic. So, all right, you gave us the bad news. How are you going to rate this, Chris?
Gerry, you know, I hate to do it. This is probably the lowest book I'm going to rate, and you know, this just doesn't work for me. For now, I was teetering on a 2, but I have to go. I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to go 1.5 out of 5 bats. Can I give something a recommendation that I do like from Will Pfeiffer? I absolutely will. I really like his Aquaman sub Diego trade paperback, so please look for that. You know, for a Catwoman story, hey, I'm going to go out off the board here, and I'm going to recommend Christie's Cattails fan fiction. Okay, I did it. Yeah, I like it. Full disclosure, because people who know me know that I'm a friend of Chris's, and we've known each other for at least 10 years. Now, in the author's own words, these stories are more complex and fully human than anyone thought possible. Heart-stopping romance, side-splitting humor, and poignantly understated tragedy. It's all here. The man inside the bat, the woman within the cat, the life between the panels, the truth beneath the masks. All here. Christie's Cattails fan fiction. You can just basically type Chris and then D-E-E. It's spelled Chris, C-H-R-I-S, D-D-E-E, and then just type in Cattails. That's Tales, T-A-L-E-S, and then you would just get to the website, and you're just going to get a rich library of fan fiction. Now, up front, I will have to tell you this: you're going to have to invest some time with this. This is a read that makes you think. This is not a fast read. This is someone who writes a lot and puts a lot of detail, a lot of imagery out there. So you're going to have to probably allow yourself enough time. This is nothing that you're going to have to say, well, I got 5 minutes, but let me look at it. But, you know, you're going to have to probably, you know, take a good, you know, each chapter read is a good 15 minutes or so, and you're going to be fully enriched for it. And that's what I think. Gerry, I know you like this much better than I did, and so did I think the majority of people out there online, if I'm reading everything correctly. What did you rate this?
Well, I would give it a higher rating. I would definitely – I really enjoyed this quite a bit. I would go as high as 4 batarangs. And the reason I would is I completely understand all of the reservations that you have. This is – continuity-wise, it's a mess. There was some crazy stuff going on at the time, and this just seemed to be way out there. But the story itself – made sense. I could sit down and I felt like there was a beginning, a middle, and an end. It just seemed well packaged. The art was good. The colors were good. I just had a really good, it seemed like an effortless read for me. Just very enjoyable. A lot of cool detail to look at, and the story didn't get bogged down by, too many side plots. So I'm going to go, 4 batarangs. I also liked seeing Selina as a mom. And seeing, that's an interesting aspect of her character to investigate. Now, in terms of whether I think this is a must-read or who I'd recommend it for, I would recommend it, but with those reservations that this is not a good place to learn about continuity. This is, if you're a brand new reader, just take all the details with a grain of salt, because it's going to be more confusing than not. But I would recommend this to Selina Kyle fans, just to see this aspect of her relationship, whether you like it, whether it works for you or not. How about you, regarding must read or recommend?
I just don't know if it fits in today's Catwoman. I almost think, I hate to say this is almost like an asterisk in the character's history, because a lot of things we don't know if this is still going to be in continuity or not. I think if you are if you're a Catwoman completist, I'll put it that way. That's something to go for. But I wouldn't put it in a must read. I think this is a completist only category for me, and even then I have some reservations.
Sure.
That's where it's at, and I can see your points too, Jerry. It's interesting to see a dynamic of a Catwoman that is a mother, what she's struggling with. Am I putting on the costume too soon?
Mm-hmm.
Am I entrusting my name and reputation with somebody that I think is capable? There are some elements that we're looking at here. I just don't know if this is the Selina that I knew as a character, from the history that I've had with her, that this is something that she would actually do. This is something she might do eventually, but I just don't think how it played out here was. It almost felt rushed in the continuity, and it was like, well, we're at this 1 year later phase of DC Comics. What should we do? Let's see if this sticks. And I don't think this is something that's stuck. But hey, to each his own. And I know a lot of readers out there took to this.
Yeah. Well, that sounds. I definitely see where you're coming from. Well, thank you. So, Batbooks for Beginners is part of the BatmanUniverse.net network. We offer all the Batman-based weekly comic book reviews, news, and some great podcasts, including the flagship comic podcast, Everyone Loves the Drake, Batgirl to Oracle, and so many more. If you like what we offer, please consider donating to us at the TBU Patreon account. You can find a link to our Patreon account on the BatmanUniverse.net website. Now, Chris, there's some other things out on the web that you do. You're on Twitter, is that right?
Yes, thank you very much, Jerry. I'm on Twitter. My handle on Twitter is at BTO and Batbooks. Again, my Twitter handle is at BTO and Batbooks. And what I like to do is sometimes I'll just tweet my weekend nightstand reads, or on Saturday mornings I'll post a TV Saturday morning listing of Yore and some pictures with that. I like to look. I'm pretty nostalgic, and I like to look at things. Sometimes I'll do some stuff with opinion pieces or whatnot. I got some followers who are like-minded folks who tend to like what I do, and it's weird because Twitter does allow you to cross over multiple interests, not just comic books, but with respect to film and television and movies and just other artists and other people. Jerry, you're one of the people I connect with on Twitter. Where can people find you on Twitter?
Well, you can catch me at Professor Frenzy. That's at Professor Frenzy. And I cover my favorite books. I do short 280 character reviews now that we can do 280 characters on Twitter. I do some Dark Shadows tweeting because that's one of my kind of nerdy interests. I do some indie comics, and Chris and I both, we do some live tweeting on Saturday nights at #Svengoolie. So if you like bad horror movies, or sometimes actually the one last night wasn't too bad, come and join us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great friendship. And just for a little bit of disclosure to let people know when we're doing this, last night they did The Amazing Shrinking Man, which was one of my dad's favorite films of all time. Yeah, so it was fun to watch that. And I tweeted out to Svengoolie jokingly, hey, it'd be really cool if you did The Amazing Colossal Man next week, And he tweeted back, sorry, we don't have that in our library. And I thought, wow, Sven actually tweeted back to me, and stuff like that. And then some guy said, well, hey, let the fans vote what we want. And I thought, oh, no, I'm not going to get into that. No, Sven, I love your show. Full disclosure, I apologize if you got any unwanted tweets and everything like that. I don't want to leave it up to a fan vote. You just do what you do. You've got a loyal following, including myself.
And me.
And me, and Jerry. So yeah, we have a great time. So that was a lot of fun. He
tweeted back at me too. I forgot about the scene in the basement where she left the cake, and I was wondering where that cake came from. And he tweeted me reminding me about it.
How cool is that though? That
so
he's
great.
Paying attention and he's doing the live tweeting during the show as well. That's really cool.
Yeah, he just builds a community. It's terrific.
Yep, absolutely. Jerry, I don't want to let this go. You do some really good reviews on the BatmanUniverse.net, and one of the things that I'm really enjoying is your take on Batgirl and the Birds of Prey.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that book. I had started it when it first came out at Rebirth, and I kind of gave up on it. But then I heard some good things about it, started going back to it, and then got assigned it to do the reviews, and I couldn't be happier. I'm really, really enjoying that book.
Yeah, I am too, especially with the current story arc that they have in progress right now, and I'm really enjoying what your take is on this. So, if you want to check out Jerry's awesome reviews of Batgirl and the Birds of Prey, and also Harley and Ivy meet Betty and Veronica, I would direct you to the BatmanUniverse.net.
Oh, thank you. And you're doing some other podcasting and various things. I heard you on Soundtrack Alley with Randy Andrews.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We covered the Bat murder story arc from the mid-'70s, so that happened over in Detective Comics, which was a really great clash between Batman and Ra's al Ghul, a battle of wits, if you will, that I love between those two characters. And you can also find me on the Batgirl the Oracle podcast with the talented Stella, who looks at the Barbara Gordon Batgirl and all the facets of that particular character. Great reviews, great guests. Can't recommend that show any more higher than our own. Honestly, Stella does a great show, and that's how I got my foot in the door with the Batman universe, so I can't be more thankful to Stella and the Batman universe. And over there, I'm reviewing the Batman Adventures comic book. This is the comic that was based on the animated series, and these are stories from the 90s. Which I think got underrated. I know they were collected in trades, but I really don't know if they got its due with as far as recognition and as far as its readership. You know, when you have a title that's aimed at a younger audience, sometimes the distribution isn't as there. They don't print as many issues. And I thought there was a real good wealth of great Batman stories out there that I just don't know if a Batman fan may have known existed. So I'm liking what I'm doing there, and I'm hoping some readers check this out.
Yeah, I like what you're doing there too. It makes it really interesting. I also loved the you did the Two-Face movie review. That was terrific.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, and that's something I would recommend, even if you're not a fan of the 66 Batman TV series. You know, granted, this is what it's based on, but I think there's still a great Batman and Two-Face story. William Shatner is excellent as Two-Face too, by the way. So yeah, if you haven't checked that out yet, please look for that and give that a view.
Great. So we also have some other folks and other podcasts that we listen to. One of them is the Cosmic Treadmill with Chris Sheehan, which on Twitter is at Ace Comics, and Reggie. That's at Reggie on Twitter. And Chris and Reggie discuss classic comics, and they give you just so much detail. They do voices. It's a lot of fun. And
it's a lot of fun.
Even if you don't like the comic's not so good, you're going to have fun listening to them talk about it because it's a good time.
Absolutely.
And we're also, of course, talking with the Sutherlands. They do the podcast Warlord World, Xenozoic Xenophiles, and Trekker Talk. So that's always their shows are always fun.
Sure, that's Warlord Worlds that examines the work of Mike Grell. Xenozoic Xenophiles that looks at the Mark Schultz artwork and the stuff that he did over in the Cadillacs and Dinosaurs series. And Trekker Talk that looks at the stuff from Ron Randall with the character Trekker. So really, really good stuff.
Yeah. They've been doing some that Trekker. They just did there's a new trade released, and they did a review of that trade. They went through it kind of page by page, and it was so interesting. I definitely recommend that.
Yep. There are also some likes and retweets. Now, we didn't get as much as usual, but to be fair, this last episode that we had dropped over the Thanksgiving weekend, and everyone's out there spending time with their relatives and doing their holiday thing and shopping and whatnot. So, but that said, we did still get some likes and retweets out there, so I do want to give a shout-out to the aforementioned Chris Sheehan at Ace Comics. I also heard again from Kristen Clark at ChrisDoodle79. Hey, thanks again, Chris. That's 2 in a row. Drew Love at Bubble Chucker. Darren Murphy at Darren Murphy. Jeffrey Betcherer at JBeckBPD, Adil Syed at Frozen Gothamite, and, of course, our host, the Batman Universe at Batman Universe. Now, if we overlooked you, which is possible, or we didn't mention you this time, please let us know, and we'll be sure to mention you in our next show. Hey, thank you very much, and we appreciate all those likes and retweets on Twitter.
Thanks so much. So that's all we have for today. Please join us in 2 weeks, where Chris and I will cover Nightwing, Brothers in Blood. Ooh, it's spooky. So, my name is Gerry.
And I'm Chris.
And thank you for listening to Bat Books for Beginners.
Batman's lady,
Bruce Wayne's lady,
she's a sharp, sexy lady.
Bruce Wayne's lady,
Beautiful lady, Bruce Wayne's lady, hard to love lady. Bruce Wayne's lady, sell his heart and soul, give everything he owned. Would be easy to reform if she could go straight for one night. Welcome to Bat Books for Beginners. Chris and Gerry go to Gotham after dark to visit with the one and only Selina Kyle in Catwoman 1 year later. Welcome to Bat Books for Beginners.